Hi, I'm Roy and welcome back to my channel and a video in my neglected Victorian bestsellers series. This is a read-along project exploring books and authors who were super popular in the 19th century, but they've dropped out of sight. No one seems to read them anymore. Critics may not have liked them very much, but readers did, so let's see what we've been missing. So it's a project that runs all through 2026 with a monthly choice of book. There's a Discord for discussion if anyone wants to read along, that's cool. And all the books are on Project Gutenberg, so there's at least one way of getting them without huge cost. But I'm starting off in December 2025, partly to give the whole thing a bit of a sort of run in and sort of proof of concept, and partly because I can't wait to get going. So the first book I've chosen is Under Two Flags by Ouida. Ouida! And this is a video done before I've read it. I'm aiming to do this for all of them, talking about why I've chosen it, what I've sort of gleaned about the author and book, and why I'm stoked about starting it, basically. So I'll start by talking about Ouida as a person, because she was definitely a celebrity author, a public figure, as well as writing lots and lots of books which people read in vast numbers. So just about the name, Ouida was a pseudonym. To start with, people didn't know whether she was male or female. Her real name is Marie, let me get this right, Marie Louisa Ramay, and Ouida was how she, as a little tot, tried to pronounce Louisa, and that's how it came out. So everyone called Ouida since then is kind of in a sort of family tradition of this person. Okay, I'm going to read a description from a book I've picked up called Wilde's Women, which is pretty good. So this is about a whole bunch of women who influenced Oscar Wilde. So despite the title, it's really about these women, by Eleanor Fitzsimmons, and there's a chapter about Ouida. If Oscar aimed to write a novel straddling high culture and mass appeal, he did not have to look far for someone to emulate. One of the more prolific contributors to the Woman's World, magazine that Oscar Wilde edited, inhabited a rarefied world of beauty and luxury, in literature and in life. Her decadent novels celebrated a lush aristocratic existence, and her aesthetic style represented a kick against the fetters imposed by Victorian notions of prudence, rationality and worth. She pioneered a new style of language studied with witty epigrams that allowed her characters to indulge in the most subversive behaviour imaginable. Her paeans to beauty earned her a devoted following among aesthetes and pre-Raphaelites, yet she was also hugely popular with the shop girls and footmen who frequented the circulating library or saved their hard-earned shillings for the 6-shilling single-volume reprints of her latest novel. Well, that sounds pretty appealing, and like I say, she had a kind of celebrity, perhaps even notoriety and fascination. If we look at this Punch cartoon of her, I always think being satirised is an example of having cut through into the public mind. They seem to be obsessed with her hair, so the fact that she wore her hair down in a great sort of curly mane, that was a thing that seemed quite shocking. I don't know, it's a bit like now if the Princess of Wales suddenly started having dreadlocks or something, people seem fascinated by that. Okay, so she wrote more than 24 novels. She allowed to be put about, or perhaps initiated in a sort of Instagram type way, images of herself as this kind of romantic version of an author, I suppose, dressed in white, would receive guests while seated on a red satin armchair, with feet encased in tiny jewelled slippers. Maybe all authors do that, I don't know. She wrote by candlelight, propped up in bed in her suite at the Langham Hotel, scratching a goose quill dipped in violet ink across large blue sheets of paper. So, candlelight in a suite in a hotel, particular colour of paper, particular type of pen, violet ink. And I guess there's three types of people in the world. There are those who'll think, well, that sounds ridiculous. There are those who'll think, that's cool, I can't wait to read her books. That would be me. There's probably a minority thinking, that does sound like legit writing advice. I will try that to see how it improves my own writing. Difficult to do the candles these days, though, because of the sprinklers in hotel rooms. So, celebrity. And what I'm picking up from this sort of stuff is that she seems to be sort of covering a number of bases. You know, she's in this sort of aesthetic, so-called decadent sort of world, along with people like Oscar Wilde. But she's also writing sensation novels of the kind of, a bit like The Woman in White, that kind of thing. They're sort of shocking and can't believe the things that are happening. And the book, it's got Under Two Flags, which was probably one of her big sellers. It has a subtitle, A Story of the Household and the Desert. So it's even sort of got a foot in the camp of realism and also of adventure fiction. So who couldn't buy it? Not for 6 shillings, 2 shillings as a yellowback. And this was in 1899. I think it came out well before that. I'll put up the date in words. So these were even cheaper one-volume editions, particularly sold at railway stations, which were an important sort of a sales channel. And, now you had these pictorial covers. Back in the day, the inks would have been brighter. They would have had glossy varnish on them. So this would look like unmissable. Now, they also carried advertising, which I always think is quite interesting. So they're sort of somewhere between a magazine and a book. But, you're getting the whole thing for a cheap price. Yes, yellow back. The back has, as is often the case, an advert for Pear's soap. Advertising break here. The delicate skin of infants and children is particularly liable to injury from coarse and unrefined toilet soap, which is commonly adulterated with the most pernicious ingredients. Hence frequently, switches to italics, the irritability, redness and blotchy appearance of the skin from which many children suffer. The purity of Pear's soap is guaranteed by the special recommendation of the late Sir Erasmus Wilson, FRS, President of the Royal College of Surgeons of England. So from beyond the grave, an endorsement for Pear's soap, which you can still buy. Okay, so set in the desert. In fact, I've got as far as a little avis au lecteur. Guess that's advice from the author. This story was originally written for a military periodical. That is true. And it didn't finish either, so people were left hanging. It has been fortunate enough to receive much commendation from military men, and for them it is now specially issued in its present form. For the general public, it may be as well to add that, where translations are added to the French phrases, those translations usually follow the idiomatic and particular meaning attached to those expressions in the argot of the army of Algeria, not the correct or literal one given to such words or sentences in ordinary grammatical parlance. Sounds a bit like responding to the critics, because she was not universally praised. Like a lot of authors in this series, she was kind of looked down at for being verbose, for what we now call purple prose, for being ungrammatical and for not knowing French properly. Well, that's told you. It's the Argot of the army. So it's in Algeria, kind of foreign legion. There is a character, I believe, a male character called Beauty. And I'll put up a picture of a guardsman of the 1870s, because I think this might be the territory we're moving into. Look at this fellow, reclining luxuriously. An exquisite personage, immaculate uniform, other bits of dress uniform dotted around. Several novels on the go, cigarette being smoked, map of the world. It's probably a bit of an empire in there. So there's him. I've even read homoerotic subtext, so it's getting better all the time. But also the main, perhaps, character, the character who seems to have got the most sort of fame, I suppose, is Cigarette. Talking of cigarettes, her name is Cigarette. She is a woman of the camp. So she is attached to the military. She seems to be dressed in a sort of mixture of local garb and bits and pieces from the army. And this book, one thing about it, it has been adapted for the screen a bunch of times and for plays as well. On the stage, Blanche Bates. In movies, Theda Bara, Priscilla Dean, Claudette Colbert. So you've always got this kind of stern and determined female, which is why I've created, to the best of my ability, with a great deal of artistic license and a lot of help from our friends Barbie, Action Man and Princess Leia, an action figure to act as a sort of mascot for the whole series. I'm not going to make one of these for every book. That would be mad. Yes, I've got Action Man's Foreign Legion coat on a Barbie doll with a Princess Leia head, and some Barbie clothes, including military boots. So she'll be watching over us as we forge our way into this reading project. Right, with Wonder Woman to help her along. I did say the critics weren't always kind. Margaret Oliphant, another Victorian author, who has perhaps not become a household name, but has at least been enshrined in the canon as a classic. She put the boot in. So this is a widely quoted essay that was in Blackwood's Edinburgh magazine, I think 1867. We do not feel ourselves capable of noticing, although what we've just said recalls them to our minds, certain very fine and very nasty books signed with the name of a certain Ouida. It is to be supposed a woman also. They are so fine as to be unreadable. Consequently, we should hope, could do little harm, the diction being too gorgeous for merely human faculties. We note, in glancing here and there through the luscious pages, that there is always either a mass of glorious hair lying across a man's breast, or a lady's white and jewelled fingers are twined in the gentleman's chestnut or raven curls. She goes into a big riff about hair in sensation novels, which is great. Sort of classifies the colours. She ranks the books by the colours of the hair. So, Margaret Oliphant, not a fan, although nothing she's saying there makes me want to read the book less. Quite the opposite, in fact. So I'm expecting drama, opulence, lots of words. I've seen a joke to the effect that it takes 3 pages to describe the hero. So we'll see if that's like hyperbole or if there actually are 3 pages. Circling back to the fame of the author, another example of that. I've got a book called Ouida, A Study in Ostentation. So this came out in about 1939, Lincolnshire County Library. it was being taken out quite a lot in the late 30s, early 40s. Then it looks like somebody summoned it from the stacks in 1999, and that was it. And now it was cast aside for me to buy for very little money. But it's got some great stuff in it, and although the title makes it sound like it would be a complete takedown, it's actually really Ostentation. Yes, she was almost megalomaniac. You know, she believed she was the best writer of the time. Once George Eliot's died, who else is there? She believed that her letters to heads of state should be taken notice of, that kind of thing. But people took her fame seriously. The Daily Mirror, that's a popular newspaper in the UK, they published this picture of an old lady. Ouida, the famous novelist, spends the winter of her years in seclusion. So how the mighty have fallen. You still see this, I don't you? Sort of National Enquirer type stuff. The only thing is, that's not Ouida. It was sold to the Mirror as a fake. So, yeah, people were still interested in her. Even our local paper. You know, we live in a small town, but it's had a paper for a long time, and they saw fit to scissors and paste things about Ouida, you know, thinking the worthy burghers of Ormskirk would be interested in her, including her last days. And again, it's one of these sort of, you know, life conforms to sort of fictional rules. She ends up having abandoned the Langham Hotel with a string of debts. She's in like a crumbling building in Venice, and apparently, again, I don't know, is this true? She would wear her white muslin gown with a train and white gloves going high up the arms, even to the end. So, you know, I think, hooray! I mean, in some ways, yeah, who cares what she looked like? But she did project an image very deliberately. Maybe not sort of conforming to the ideals of beauty at the time. She seems certainly to have been forceful. Pictures look like another one of those people you wouldn't want to kick your ball into her garden sort of thing. And critics might have been looking down, but from the point of view of regular folks, it was, you know, this was seen as sort of not like trashy fiction. So fans of Val Doonican, the Irish singer and popular entertainer who was all across the television schedules when I was growing up in the 60s, may remember that song, The Agricultural Irish Girl. However, that song actually was written in 1885, so it started off as a music hall song, and there's a whole verse that you seldom get anymore. Val didn't sing it, and if you do get it, it's been changed. So here is the verse they don't want you to hear from The Agricultural Irish Girl. So this is praising Molly Mary Malone with all sorts of great qualities that she has. She has no grand education, for she's only passed her letters, but for acting like a lady, I would like to see her betters. She does not read Ouida's work, or read Bow Bell's fashion pages. She does not wear those things behind the ladies call bird cages. So, moving into commentary on fashion there, but yeah, so the idea is that, you know, Ouida's works was a sort of a thing the educated ladies would be reading. Right, I've probably said enough. It's going to be time to read the book soon. Really looking forward to it. I will just slip in a mention of Ouida-ite, a really great website I'll put a link to, that has lots and lots of Ouida-ish things in it, so well worth checking out. I'll report back after I've read it in January, and meanwhile I'll do another video about the January pick, which is The Heir of Redclyffe by a very different kind of personality, Charlotte Mary Yonge. Okay, so That's it. I'll be back soon with something else.